From the legendary hanging gardens of Babylon to the floating gardens of the Aztecs, ancient royal gardens were more than just beautiful spaces. They were displays of power, engineering achievements, and sacred places that shaped civilizations. The hanging gardens of Babylon have captured imaginations for centuries, but here's the fascinating twist. We're not even sure they existed. Ancient writers described an amazing series of rising garden terraces that reached heights of 75 feet. The gardens supposedly used clever water-lifting devices to irrigate exotic plants, creating a green paradise in the desert. The story goes that King Nebuchadnezzar II built them around 600 BCE to comfort his homesick wife, who missed the lush mountains of her homeland. But despite being named one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, no archaeological evidence of the gardens has ever been found in Babylon. Some researchers now think they might have actually been in the ancient city of Nineveh. Whether real or legend, the gardens show how advanced ancient engineering could be. Let's travel to ancient Egypt, where the temple gardens of Karnak were like an oasis of green in the desert. These gardens weren't just for show. They were sacred spaces where Egyptian priests grew special plants for religious ceremonies. The gardens featured rows of perfectly arranged trees, pools filled with lotus flowers, and beds of medicinal herbs. Priests used clever irrigation systems that worked with the Nile's yearly floods to keep everything green. They grew frankincense, myrrh, and other aromatic plants that they burned as offerings to the gods. The gardens also had practical uses. They provided ingredients for medicines and materials for mummification. We know about these gardens from ancient paintings and plant remains found by archaeologists. Even the tree pits where they planted sycamore figs and palm trees are still visible today. Now let's explore the Garden of Perfect Brightness, or Yuanming Yuan, the crown jewel of Chinese imperial gardens. Built in the 1700s, this massive complex was more than just a garden. It was a whole world of its own, covering an area 5 times larger than the Forbidden City. Picture hundreds of buildings spread across lakes, hills, and forests. The emperors filled it with amazing features: palaces that seemed to float on water, mechanical fountains that played music, and even European-style buildings decorated with Chinese designs. They collected rare plants from across China and created perfect miniature landscapes that looked like paintings come to life. The garden wasn't just beautiful, it was also a symbol of the emperor's power and knowledge. Sadly, most of it was destroyed in 1860 during a conflict with European forces. Today, the ruins remind us of this amazing place that once showed the height of Chinese garden design. The royal gardens of Pasar Gudai, built by Cyrus the Great around 550 BCE, gave us the word paradise. It comes from the Persian peridaisa, meaning enclosed garden. These gardens followed a special 4-part design that spread across the ancient world. Picture a large space divided by water channels into 4 sections, with a central pool where the channels meet. This layout wasn't just about looking nice. It represented the 4 elements and the 4 rivers of paradise in Persian beliefs. The gardens mixed useful and beautiful plants, with fruit trees, flowers, and shade trees arranged in neat rows. They used smart water systems with underground channels called qanats to bring water from far away, making a green oasis in the dry landscape. We can still see the remains of these water channels and garden layouts at Pasar Gudai today. The Romans were masters at making gardens work smarter, not harder. They created amazing systems that still influence how we garden today. Their most impressive trick? The heated greenhouse effect. By using thin sheets of mica stone as windows and underground heating systems called hypocausts, they could grow exotic fruits like lemons and oranges, even in cold Britain. Roman gardens also had clever watering systems with lead pipes bringing water right to the plants. They even developed grafting techniques to create stronger fruit trees and wrote detailed gardening guides that gardeners still use today. The Romans were big on practical knowledge. They figured out which plants grew best together and how to use different soils. They even discovered that adding crushed pottery to soil helped with drainage. These weren't just pretty gardens. They were living laboratories where Romans tested and improved their growing methods. Japanese imperial gardens were masterpieces of subtle meaning, where every stone, plant, and water feature told a story. These gardens went beyond simple beauty. They were living art that showed Buddhist and Shinto beliefs. The most famous, like the Shinjuku Gyoen, mixed Chinese and Japanese styles with amazing skill. Garden designers used tricks to make small spaces feel huge. They carefully placed rocks to look like mountains and pruned trees to create perfect mini-landscapes. The gardens used something called borrowed scenery, where they made distant mountains and trees part of the garden view. Water played a big part too. Peaceful ponds reflected the sky, while carefully placed streams made soft, calming sounds. These gardens weren't just random, pretty places. Everything had meaning. A crooked path might make you slow down and notice nature, while a carefully placed stone could represent an important spiritual idea. The Aztecs solved their farming challenges with an incredible innovation: floating gardens called chinampas. Picture long islands of fertile soil built in shallow lake beds, creating farmland where there was once only water. These weren't just simple rafts. They were carefully engineered plots about 30 feet wide and up to 330 feet long. Farmers created them by piling up layers of lake mud and water plants, anchored by willow trees whose roots held everything together. These gardens were super productive, growing enough food to feed the massive city of Tenochtitlan. The water around the plots provided natural irrigation and fertilizer from fish waste. Farmers could grow up to 7 crops a year on these artificial islands. What's really amazing is that some of these gardens are still in use today in Xochimilco, Mexico City, using the same techniques the Aztecs developed centuries ago. The ancient world's gardeners were basically the first environmental engineers, coming up with amazing solutions to grow plants where they shouldn't have survived. In ancient Rome, gardeners created early greenhouses using thin sheets of mica and special heating systems under the soil. The Nabateans in Petra built gardens in the desert using smart water-catching channels carved into the rock. In Korea, royal gardeners developed special pruning methods to make trees grow in artistic shapes that could handle heavy snow. The Persians mastered underground water tunnels called qanats, some extending for miles, to create green spaces in dry regions. These ancient gardeners didn't just plant seeds and hope. They studied soil types, tracked seasonal changes, and passed down their knowledge through detailed written guides and apprenticeships. Royal gardens weren't just beautiful places to relax, they were powerful political tools. Kings and emperors used these grand spaces to show off their wealth and control over nature itself. Think about it. Creating a lush paradise in the middle of a desert or making foreign plants grow in new climates was like saying, "I'm so powerful, I can bend nature to my will." When foreign visitors came to these gardens, they saw more than pretty flowers. They saw expensive plants from distant lands, complex watering systems, and armies of skilled gardeners. This sent a clear message about the ruler's wealth and influence. Gardens also helped maintain power at home. Rulers used them for important ceremonies and meetings, making decisions while walking through carefully designed landscapes. Some even restricted access to their gardens, making them exclusive spaces that only important people could enter. Modern science is revealing amazing new details about ancient gardens that we never knew before. Satellite imagery has helped archaeologists spot old garden layouts hidden under centuries of soil, while DNA analysis tells us exactly what plants grew in these spaces thousands of years ago. Scientists have found ancient pollen trapped in pottery and tomb walls, showing us the exact flowers that once bloomed in Egyptian gardens. Ground-penetrating radar has mapped out buried irrigation systems in Persian paradise gardens, and chemical analysis of soil samples reveals how ancient gardeners enriched their soil. Advanced computer modeling now lets us see how these gardens might have looked in their prime, from the terraces of Babylon to the floating gardens of the Aztecs. These discoveries are changing what we thought we knew about ancient gardening skills. Thanks for exploring these amazing ancient gardens with us. From floating farms to desert paradises, our ancestors were truly creative. If you enjoyed learning about these incredible spaces, hit like, subscribe, and share to join us on more historical adventures.